Everyone wants to talk about AI. It has become one of the hottest topics of 2023, with new tools appearing every day to help us complete a wide range of jobs. To date, the website There's an AI for That has more than 4,800 different tools listed to accomplish more than 1,300 tasks, from carrying out cybersecurity risk assessments to generating personalized pictures of kittens. Indeed, whether you want to brew the perfect beer or pollinate plants with robot bees, there really is an AI for that. But as wild and futuristic as the uses of AI appear to be, it's not all kitten pictures and robots. In fact, in the charity sector, many of its uses can now be applied, particularly to our marketing, where many of us already use data and CRM systems to optimize supporter journeys and communications with our donors. It's not quite robot bees, but it is machine learning in the here and now, and there's actually plenty of relatively simple stuff we can do to get to grips with the advent of AI and apply it to the way we work, even if every new reported tool is currently making our brains hurt. In this webinar, our partners at Salesforce will explore how AI can help improve supporter experiences and provide insights into donor behaviour, while sharing the knowledge that we need to prepare for AI in our own organisations. Now, before handing over to Andrea and Patrick, I just want to share a few house rules. This session will be recorded, meaning that the recording of the session, the presentation, and other resources will be made available to you within a week's time, so don't worry if you've missed something. We love when our webinar sessions are interactive, so please do feel free to add any comments and share your experience and top tips in the chat section. And please ask lots of questions at any time during and after the presentation by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen for Andrea and Patrick to address at the end. If there's a particular question you'd like answered, you can also upvote other people's questions within the Q&A section of Zoom. Finally, if you encounter any sound or image issues, please let us know in the chat and we'll do our very best to get back to normal as soon as we can. Now, without further ado, let me hand over to Andrea and Patrick.
Thank you, Chiara. That was a lovely introduction. And welcome everybody to the future of nonprofit marketing, preparing for AI. And we're really going to be focusing on that last part. But before do that, we are talking about the future here. And so I think it is important to indicate that Salesforce forward-looking statements are important here. I'm just checking why I can move forward. Why that not happening? Sorry. I'm just going to reshare because I can't move forward with the slides. And we have it going. Sorry for that. Please, before we start this webinar, because we are talking about the future, please look at the forward-looking statements and make your purchasing decisions on the products that are available today. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce my co-host, Patrick Frank. Hi, Patrick. So nice that we're here together.
Yeah, together again.
Yes. And I would like to especially thank you. We always really enjoy if people have an interest in technology and if they take the curiosity to look in the new things that are happening. Changes are pretty fast now, I have to say. Like Chiara said, my head hurts a little bit with all the updates, but we're always really grateful that you're here with us today. And so we want to thank you for being present with us here. And before we go any further, we want to learn a little bit more about you. And so we have two polls. The first one is, have you tried ChatGPT or another AI tool before? And so the answers are A, just for personal uses, B, yes, I've used ChatGPT, Bard, and others, or C, not yet. And so we're going to leave a little time. So in that time, I'm going to ask Patrick, how much does your head hurt with all the updates, Patrick?
Oh, well, I get the fun of not only answering question A for this, because I do get to play around with it, but then I have to try to explain it and understand it at a level where I can explain it. So yeah, it can be like drinking from a fire hose is probably the way I'd put it when it comes to trying to digest all the stuff out there with AI.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm pretty excited about what we're presenting here today, because I think it can be really transformative. So I'm looking at Chiara. Do we already have the results? And we do. So have you ever tried? And we have a pretty mixed audience here today. So let me see. 24% just for personal use cases, 47% used ChatGPT, Bard, or others, and 29% not yet, so not at all yet. And with that, we're going to go to the next poll. Where is your organization looking at AI to create a solution? And so the options are A, how to drive growth with greater efficiency across the organization, so an AI CRM. B, at better journeys, how do I acquire and retain supporters? Or C, how do I write correct copy for grants, emails, campaigning, and even program work? And so I am really curious what the outcome is here. I have absolutely no clue. What do you think, Patrick?
Well, so all the time, so I spend all my time talking to nonprofits. And for me, my experience is that the ambition is always there. I mean, organizations that are limited on maybe budget or resources or people are always keen to find the things that are going to help do things better, faster, with more scale. It's just sometimes I think that the challenges or the barriers to entry are too big. So I'm very keen to see what this poll turns out, because I think I see more ambition in the nonprofit space for this stuff than I see in a lot of the for-profit world.
So we have an answer, I think, Chiara. Oh, interesting. 24% for both entire organization and for better journeys for supporters, the fundraising marketing bit. But 52% is still very much on like your correct copy, emails, time saving in writing, and just, you know, writer's block. That is a very interesting outcome. Well, I think that given that, it's good that we're going to talk about what it means for you today. So Patrick, what are we going to do today?
So, and as Andrea said, thank you everybody for being here. What we're going to do is we're going to talk a bit about how that combination of AI plus your data, and I think that's really important to emphasize, the data that you have will help create impact. And it's going to do that in a multitude of ways. So we're going to talk first about what is all this? What are we talking about when we are talking about AI? Because that can be quite a broad concept. We're going to try to make it practical, and then we're going to give you some guidance on how you might want to think about preparing for some of these things that you're looking to bring into your organizations to really help make that impact.
And so AI will change our lives. Tell me more.
It most definitely will. But what we're really going to talk about is kind of this big elephant in the room of AI. And I want to start by saying that it's almost a misleading question, because to ask you what you're doing about AI would be like asking you, what are you doing about social, or what are you doing about online? AI is a big concept. It can mean a lot of different things. Now, the way I like to think about this is that any changes in technology or the tools that are out there can either be complementary or they can be transformative. Now, what I'd say is things like cryptocurrency or virtual reality or NFTs, those are complementary. They are things that may or may not help us in our in our work or in our personal lives, but they don't really change the way we do things. They complement things. They kind of add to it. It's a tool in our toolbox. And I'd say that AI for a while has been in that category, especially what we'll call predictive AI, and we'll talk about in a little bit. But what we're seeing now is we're at this inflection point where the advent of generative AI, your ChatGPT and Bards of the world, this is something that's going to fundamentally recondition the behavior of every individual interacting with it, much in the way that, say, online shopping or social media. Social media is a good example. Social changed the way that we engage with so many people in our lives. It changed the way we engage with brands or the way we decide who to vote for. All these things came from the advent of these tools. And I'd argue that AI is on the verge of really making those fundamental reconditioned changes. And that's why we think it's really important. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these numbers that you see on your screen right now in terms of how fast it's growing, how much all of you are researching it in your own roles. I think you all see that change coming. And so that's really where, as Salesforce, we've focused a lot of our time and our energy.
So yeah, it really does remind me of, well, I won't say how old I am, but back in the days when what's the internet? And then what later on, what is social media? And now, so a new transformative change. And what does that mean for nonprofits? So I think a lot of the people that are here today have a natural curiosity. So they might already look at how it can make their life easier. They might already have tried ChatGPT for getting some time savings in writing emails or even grant proposals. But we also see that because of the increase of data, you can deliver a better experience. So it allows us for more personalization. And last but not least, having so much data has great transformative capability for the nonprofit sector, because it will allow us to look at how we can solve some of the causes we are fighting for with much more data. But I also want to ask a question to you. What if we don't look into it? And I saw Patrick already looking at me.
I did, because I think there's one area that we shouldn't forget. And the fact is, AI will have a transformative effect on those stakeholders, those supporters, those donors, those advocates that are out there in the world that are helping drive your mission. But where I really start to see a whole host of benefits coming from it is the impact it's going to have on your team members, on yourselves. You know, regardless of the size or the shape of a nonprofit that I've worked with, the people that are there doing the work are the most precious commodity, the most important resource. And so a lot of the tools that I see coming about, especially in the AI space, they're there to help drive the work of those people further, to help them really maximize the impact they have for the organizations they work for. And so I think as we look at AI, that net benefit at the end, the growth in donations, the growth in supporters, the growth of the mission is massively important. But internally, the almost sentimental effect that it has, the qualitative effect maybe that it'll have on the people working there, hopefully makes them more endeared to your organizations, stay longer, work there for a long time, and really feel like they're making the maximum amount of the time they're spending with your organization. So that was just my little side note there. So sorry, Andrea.
I think you're totally right. I think we should have added another circle with the people. And I do want to ask the people that are here today, what do you think happens if you don't engage with it at all? So you decide to not research it, to not look at it. And I think one of the things that we've really heard when we talk with experts in this field is that because of the advent of generative AI, there's been a lot more content because it's a lot easier to create it. So the cost is a lot lower. And so it's going to be a little harder for your organization to be heard with so much content out there. And in addition, when we see technology advances, such as social media, we see they're always the first movers. They are going to take advantage of that technology. They are going to be more personalized because they are using that data. And so not looking at AI at all is going to have some impact for the sector. And I think especially, and that's the last one, is where we make impact. So we're in a nice studio today that was used also for gaming. We really see that for some of the cause areas, AI becomes very important. And if nonprofits are not in that space to talk about at least the implications of it, somebody else takes that space up. So AI will change our lives. And I think, Patrick, I hope we got you. It is a generational opportunity. It will really be more of a transformation and a conditioning of what people are used to or behaving. What is AI really? Patrick, could you help me?
Yeah, I can. So first of all, the way to think of this is at a high level, what AI does, and this is grossly simplistic, so apologies for those of you that are already really deep on this for this explanation, but it's a technology that pores over data to provide you with insight, feedback, and solutions against that data. It's the room full of data scientists poring over all of the data that you have at your disposal to really help you use that most effectively. But the secret sauce here is the focus. So as you look at that slide, machine learning underpins all of this. It is just constant evolution of understanding of data. And at least from a Salesforce perspective, kind of the two main themes that we focus in on are really those elements of predictive and generative AI. And I think it's important to understand that they're quite similar. And I can see you've gone right to what the next point I'm going to make there is, Andrea, which is, okay, great. I've just said that they're quite similar, but what's the difference? So at a high level, predictive AI, which is, first, this has been around for quite some time. From a Salesforce perspective, we've been working on this technology. We've been baking it into our solutions since 2016. And what predictive AI does is it pores over a whole host of historical data to help you identify patterns so you can make predictions about future outcomes. So, a really good example of that is an AI that would sit and look at all of your digital advertising and say, hey, this audience was really responsive to that ad on Google. So maybe you want to spend more on Google and maybe spend less on Facebook because the audiences over there just didn't respond. That's the idea behind predictive AI. It's prognostication. Now, if we're going to think about generative AI, this is where I get very excited because I think it's absolutely fascinating because, and not to sound lofty, it unleashes creativity, especially if you're a marketer, you're a fundraiser, you're working with digital communications. Because if you're working in one of those roles, typically you're building emails, you're helping update the website, you're building landing pages. And while there can be a creative element there, there's also a lot of nuts and bolts. I'm going to drag this image onto the screen and I'm going to reshape it and size it. And I need text in a few different languages and I've got to write the copy. What generative AI does is it gives you a tool to do those things so that you can zoom out and look at, okay, how do I build a fantastically compelling journey or campaign with these emotional touch points using these channels? And hey, generative AI, ChatGPT, Einstein GPT, if I'm going to use the Salesforce version, thanks for helping me build that journey. What kind of segment of my audience should I be thinking about? The generative AI piece is there to help do at speed, at scale, and with a huge amount of data intelligence, those things that are the nuts and bolts activities, so you can really start to put together just compelling journeys and campaigns. And this is where it gets really exciting for me. I mean, I'm a big Marketing Cloud geek, so it's what I really enjoy is the idea of not the marketer not having to be a hardcore IT professional to do this amazing stuff.
And so you have me convinced, but I used to be a fundraiser at many nonprofits and I used to do communication. So I just want to see how it works in real life. So we're going to go to a practical example of how nonprofits have successfully used AI, both predictive and generative, in important supported experiences and streamlining those journeys that Patrick loves so much. And so we're going to talk about something that probably happened to all of you in the last couple of months. We are going through a cost of living crisis. And we have seen, even if we look at the COF data, a lower amount of people that are donating and some people that are lapsed donors. So you're observing that drop in the conversion rates, you're worried, and you start to think of a campaign. How can you get the donations back up and how can you get the lapsed donors back in? Well, we're going to do something rather simple, a re-engagement journey. So we'll do a very simple journey where we do use AI. We use something called send time optimization. Patrick, what is send time optimization?
I love this because I think this helps explain predictive AI perfectly. So within the Marketing Cloud, this STO, send time optimization, is a step you put in a journey. And what it does, and it does one thing and it does it really well. Let's say Andrea and I are, two of your potential supporters. We've clicked on an ad, we've given you our email address, and we start receiving emails from you. Well, at a certain point in a journey, you really want to drive up the effectiveness of your email campaigns. And so let's say Andrea and I land on that step in a journey in the exact same moment. What the predictive AI, what send time optimization does is it looks back through all of our respective histories of engaging with you, all the times we open those emails, and it gives you the exact right time or the exact closest to the right time for each one of us to receive that next email. So it's likely to be at the top of the inbox. So for example, if I'm someone who opens my email at 8:05 every Tuesday morning when I'm on my way to work, and Andrea is someone who doesn't check that email account until 9 o'clock at night after the kids are in bed. Even if we get there at the same time, STO will hold us both there, sending the email at the 8:05 for me, at the 9 o'clock for Andrea, so that it's highly likely that when we go to open our inbox, your email's sitting at the top. It's all it does. Simple bit of AI that is helping you get a really effective result.
You know me so well, Patrick.
I do.
Not until the kids are to bed. But let's say you look at that journey and you're looking at making it a little bit more advanced. We're still with predictive AI, but you have a little bit more time to think about it because you are using tools to help you. And so you are looking at changing the subject line for people that haven't opened that email at all. But you happen to talk to maybe somebody in the volunteering department. And today, most organizations don't have that data in the same place. And she mentions that there was actually a big event where a lot of the donors that lapsed attended. So maybe they didn't really lapse permanently. They're still interested in your cause, but maybe they were more interested at the moment in the volunteering. Now, if you don't have that data together, you don't know that. But with AI, you can get a lot more insights. And so you adjust the content to the different segmentations and you have a successful journey. Now, this is a very basic thing we can all do today. But what if we would do that if you had more than just the data that you have in your organization today? So for example, in the example that we just mentioned, we could have a much better segmentation. So normally we look at opt-in, we look at maybe an RFM, so 6 months ago, or average donation. If we have a little bit more information in our CRM, we will look at proximity to cause, but it's sort of where it ends. All other data is usually in silos. We have to either pull it out or we have to do manual looking. I think Patrick is looking at me like he's done that. And so let's say we have all data connected. It's the dream. We're happy. And so we can see that they visited the website. Maybe they even purchased something if we have a web shop or it's an external crowdfunding page. We even have data about if they were to an event. Some of that data today is even in paper, but it's all there. We have called even the donor care services to give them our data. And so our journey becomes a lot more personalized. So we're looking again at that journey and we see again that lapse. And so we make a segmentation that we can make with many, many more variables because we now finally have that total picture, the 360 of your supporter. We really understand every bit of that data. And so we make a journey that's much more personalized. We could even have emails that are just one-on-one. And so it becomes much more personalized for the supporter and your results are much better. So we have an engagement up from 16% and we have 4,800 donations. Now that's great, but we're still not using generative AI. So let's look at what it would mean if we use generative. And Patrick.
So I'm going to interject. I'm going to interject here though, because I've been having a form of this conversation around data for quite some time. In the 10 years I've been with Salesforce working on this technology. And I can say from experience that as great as that looks, I would assume there are skeptics in the audience around, well, pulling all the data and having this kind of single view of the individual is all well and good. But the truth is, in the past, it was way too much work to justify the expense. Most organizations I worked with said, yeah, I've got data sitting in 5, 10 different systems. But for what you're telling me is just sounds so great, to actually do the work, to connect it all together is hard. We don't have the people, we don't have the budget, we don't have the time. And we don't want something that anytime we change something in the data, that we have to update everything across the board. And that's been a loud and clear message that we baked into our own product roadmap. And so you're seeing a very nice animated visualization up on screen. But what that is a bit of technology within Salesforce that does something I'm going to call harmonization. And harmonization is a word I want you to remember, because what this is instead of having multiple data sets that you always have to stitch together like a ball of tangled Christmas lights, it is a technology that automatically can look across the different data sources, pull the right data in based on whichever data you want to have in one master record, and do all that work for you and continually do that work for you. When you create a new field over here, it automatically populates back into that main record. The point I'm making here is, without going too deep into the tech, is the technology now exists to be able to, without having to have a huge amount of time and expense, marry all your data together into one record and not and allow the AI on our side as well as the technology on our side to do all that heavy lifting for you. And that's massively important to really get the best out of any AI solution you're going to use, whether it's Salesforce or anybody else.
I think it's good that you grounded me back to reality. And so also maybe to the beginning of this webinar. So how can you prepare already for AI and for generative AI specifically is by connecting that data. And I think it's important to have a look at some of the organizations that have already done that. And those are charities, but also companies, any type of organization, even government is slowly looking at it. And so we're going to have a little experience of what generative AI could learn from your CRM data. And we're going to do that with a video. So I'm going to hit play. And if you don't hear any sound, let me know. So we had a little announcement yesterday about how you could use AI for your CRM. And I think, Patrick, what did you think of that announcement?
I mean, I'm always, like I said, very excited. And reason is the announcement came both at our, oops, we're gonna repeat there. Yeah. The announcement came not only in relation to Marketing Cloud, which is my side of the world, but they did it in our marketing conference Connections, which is in my former hometown of Chicago, which is a total aside for me and nobody else. I think this is fantastic. I think it's what we've been wanting to see things go to for a while, because Andrea, you and I were speaking about this previously. Marketing went from a very kind of creative, very focused kind of effort to then a very technologically driven function. And for a long time now, marketers had to have a whole load of technical skills to really complement what hopefully brought them to marketing in the first place, which was marketing in the first place, which was engaging with people, with organizations. And now these tools, they're not replacing people. They're helping them do what they do better and faster. And something like this in our software stack just makes me excited, because it's what we've been building on since 2016.
Yeah, and I think it's important to address something here, because we've always talked about the opportunity of having the data of your CRM. So with this new capability of generative AI, you can use public data, which nonprofits have an advantage almost to the private sector, because we've always shared a lot of data about where the highest levels of poverty are, where more kittens need to be adopted. But you can add the tonality, the expertise, and the personalization of what is in your CRM with a very secure level. And so I think it's important to understand that Salesforce is in the business of security. I think Patrick.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And the truth of it is, a lot of you, I imagine, have for years now had a focus on security around GDPR. I spent a good degree of my time in a previous role in Salesforce working with nonprofits specific to advocacy and human rights. And the layers of security that you have to think about when you've got people on the ground in countries where there's risk that they'll be arrested or they'll be deported. It's no joke. We have to be airtight on this, because in the way I see it and the way we articulate it internally is if you as an organization have a security problem, it's big, it's huge, and not to be overlooked. If Salesforce fails on this, that's the ball game. That is something that we manage these things for thousands of customers. So we have to get this right. So, when it comes to AI, we've had things like an AI ethics group for 6 years now. We build the human in loop framework so that, organizations can verify everything that gets created before it goes out. We try to make sure that we're thinking about this, not in a science fiction, this is going to run everything for you, but in a solution that is something that is relevant, that is secure, but also has that component of stewardship, both in your hands and in ours, so that we can make sure it's used properly. And that's where the security, the relevance, the trust, it's just massively important to us. It's the first thing we have to show and get right before any other conversations take place.
Yeah, and so if we saw the poll, this is just a little taste of what the future of marketing is. And for some organizations, that's closer than for others. But obviously, even if you use predictive AI, we're not throwing all guardrails overboard. So how does this work if you say, well, I want to have a little bit more of predictive AI in my organization before I start with generative?
Well, and what it does is it creates guardrails is the best way to think about it. Whereas right now, I would assume in many of your digital campaigns, you're there for every step, all the testing, all the builds, all the rendering, making sure things look right in different browsers and different devices, and the AI is going to help you build a lot of that. But those touch points are still there, validating that the message has the look and feel that you want, validating that the content that's getting posted is, accurate and correct. All those things, it's flexibly built. You can allow it to do quite a lot of the functions for you, but at the same time, you can scale it back to the level that you're comfortable with, so that there always is the ability to be kind of the final say-so on the big decisions and the big sends, because these things are important, and they are, as great as AI can be and as great as automation can be, there's that peace of mind that comes with knowing that you have a semblance of control over your messaging, over what you're putting out there into the world.
Yeah, and I think we're in an audience today that has a natural curiosity for it, but you have to bring it back to your internal organization, maybe convince also your board and the exec management. And so that's really where you can talk about some of these guardrails. Now, we want to leave a lot of time for questions and how maybe organizations with a smaller budget can address it. But before that, I just want to close out today. So Patrick?
Yeah, so really, this is all very high level. To try to talk about everything to do with AI in 30 minutes or less is a Herculean task. But my hope is that we've kind of given you at least a grounding in AI and kind of how it can be applied to systems like a CRM or a marketing system to really start to scale up the capabilities of your teams, how important data is to that. One of the things that in the questions maybe we can get to, but how important it is to have your data, the active and the passive, the first party and the zero party, but how important that data is going to be to drive really a lot of these big generative AI advances, how hopefully managing that data has gotten easier. But then obviously what the impact can be, the impact both on the end people that you're speaking with, your supporters, your donors, your constituents, and the people internally that, like I said, lifeblood of your organization that are really wanting to do more, especially as, the economy being what it is, sometimes doing more with a lot less. So hopefully at least those themes came across. Obviously, it's something I get very excited to talk about. So having this at a much deeper level is something we are always keen to do. So please ask questions here, follow up with us, because it's exciting stuff. I enjoy this a great deal. So hopefully that was helpful for everybody here. And I'm just keen to hear questions. Andrea, any final thoughts from your side?
I think what I really remember from the time that the question was, what is social media? Is that a lot of nonprofits were very much waiting. And so when I get one of the most often asked questions often on webinars is, how can nonprofits with limited resources and technical expertise get started with AI? I really want to just give one message, and that is whatever you do at your organization from today onwards, ask yourself, how could AI help us? And so there are many, many tools. I think Chiara mentioned a lot. There's a whole website for it. Some of those tools are what all of you have already tried, the content and the copy. You copy pasted it over from ChatGPT, maybe in a journey. Now that is natively built in. But there's other things like segmentations that give huge opportunities. So as you saw in the video, your question could be maybe, what is the segmentation that I need for lapsed donors? But it could also be, could you build me the landing page and the journey? And so that requires practice, that requires marginal gains. You have to first get a culture of trust in this data. There's a lot of questions around it. Our Office of Ethics and Humane Responsibility of Technology gets a lot of them. And so it is important, especially if you're a smaller organization, to first have that culture of experimentation, to have internal experiments, maybe with send time optimization, and celebrate when it brings in another 4,000 in donations. And so that's what I would really like to give with you today. Ask, how could AI help us? Because it can transform your organization, but also the impact we have as a sector on the causes we fight for. And so any kind of interaction with the fundraisers is the same. Every part of that journey could be, how can AI help us to become more aware with them, to have more new supporters, to welcome them, to engage them, and to grow them. And that was my final message. So I'm going to look at the Q&A, which is steadily filling. Okay, so let me see which one was first.
I think I see Stephen Wright at the very top end. Well, I think we showed a couple different things, but Stephen, maybe to broaden the point out. So the question for everybody is, it'd be useful to know what/how Salesforce will be implementing AI into their platform. So as I mentioned, we've been doing this steadily since 2016. And the way I like to explain it to people is AI has been almost like electricity. It's not a separate solution, an AI cloud or an AI suite of tools. What it has been us releasing elements into the different aspects of the Salesforce ecosystem where they make sense. So that send time optimization is a really good example. That was something that we deployed to Marketing Cloud. There wasn't a paid add-on for it. There wasn't you have to get licenses or you only get so many requests. It was something we simply turned on because it was something that was going to be useful in that particular tool, which is called Journey Builder. And I've seen that, I don't want to create a hard and fast rule, but I've seen that pretty much through the entire Salesforce ecosystem. When there's elements of AI that make a lot of sense, we've released them. Now, as generative has come up, obviously that's a more expansive tool set and solution. And we just made announcements on Einstein GPT yesterday. So some of this is a forward-looking statement. Let us get into the details with you and kind of show you how that takes shape. But overall, we see AI as a main consistent element of all of our solutions, not a separate piece that you either can take or leave. It's something that should be in there to help.
Yeah, and I think that very much has to do with what you said about earlier. This will shape the behavior of people and their expectations. And so another valid question we get often is, should we not be very worried about plagiarism when using ChatGPT?
My wife is a secondary school teacher, so I can tell you that I've had more conversations about this than probably normal. I would say that is, it's always a concern. I think that we'd be foolish not to be thinking about it. How Salesforce is addressing that, to be perfectly honest, I still need to get into the details a bit to see what tools we have in place. I can say from the Marketing Cloud side, we've always had tools in place that do things like ensure your emails don't get caught up in spam. And anybody who's dealt with spam traps knows that sometimes it's the wording that you use, the text, that actually can cause your emails to get caught by spam. And so where I feel that we're going to address it is very much in a similar fashion. That said, I haven't gotten close enough to it in the last 24 hours since the announcement to be able to give you a more concrete example, but I would presume that that's going to be an important part of the feature set.
I think an interesting movement is there is a body now of fundraisers that are looking at AI policy. So every organization is looking at defining an AI policy. And an element, I think, of that is, what do you do when you use it? Do you say it or not? But also not to throw the guardrails overboard right away. And if you use it within your CRM, you're obviously in an environment where you can choose much more what data trains the algorithm, which with ChatGPT currently is not in the OpenAI website version necessarily the case. So I think that's where, for me, the most excitement is if you have the layers of data that exist now in the world. We have the public data that accessible is to everybody. We have nonprofit specific data that might not be accessible to everybody, but might be relevant to us, like maybe data about major donors. And then we have our own data in our CRM, and we know the most about what we want to say, what we don't want to say, and we absolutely do not want to plagiarize. And so how you use that is, I think, the final step in your journey. But I hope that sort of answers it. And we also will share some resources where you can go deeper onto that question.
Yeah. There's 2 questions next about send time. So I might just answer those together, Andrea. So the first one is, does send time optimization require that AI be built in or a bolt-on to your CRM or the mail platform you use? So send time optimization is very specific to Marketing Cloud. So when we refer to that, that is a Marketing Cloud tool. So I can't speak of any other mail platform that you might be using. What I can tell you about our solutions are that the oh, somebody's asked if I don't know if we want to stop the screen share, by the way, Andrea, so we can maybe all see each other. I think that's fine, but I do know we have resources we want to keep up on screen. So send time optimization is something that is baked in. Now, the next question is it available in Marketing Cloud? Would you recommend adding it to all your email journeys? No, I wouldn't add it to all your email journeys, only because I think there's instances where you want to have emails go out at specific times, not just the time I open my emails. There are certain things that are maybe tied to an event or tied to an anniversary or some other key moment, or even a wait period. I think that, this is one of those instances where I would look at that journey by journey and make a decision as to whether or not send time optimization makes sense for that kind of open. A newsletter is a great example for a send time optimization use case. But an update on an urgent crisis that you may be supporting, maybe not. So that would be my take at a high level.
I think the next question is, when companies like yourself and Microsoft integrate AI, how do you reassure your users about the safety of data submitted when you hook in the AI technology?
So the first thing I say is we have a series of core values that, if anybody who's been in a Salesforce presentation at some point, you'll have seen us bring those out. And one of those, trust is one, but transparency is an important core value. So anybody who's at all interested, there's our, trust.salesforce.com is a great example of the level of transparency we put behind our systems. And in that case, it's the availability of our systems. But when it comes to AI, that AI ethics board that we've had going for 6 years, that is all that they think about, is how are we using AI ethically and with the right amount of safety and security. So I would say that we can go deeper into that conversation. I think it's good that any organization that's considering using this really push us on that, really want us to show how you can have that peace of mind and put us to the test. That would be probably my bog standard answer. But based on our track record, like I said, that trust site's a great example. I'm confident in the way we're approaching that.
Yeah, and I think also we have a platform for free learning where we now have a track called Responsible Creation of Artificial Intelligence. And so I think one of the things that we really see in the sector, and that was also the title of this webinar, is how to prepare for AI. And so connecting your data and thinking about an AI policies are first steps to a responsible creation of artificial intelligence. And so once you hit the further steps, I think you can go deeper into what type of data you want to share and what type of data you don't. And so I see Einstein GPT is only available through Salesforce. That is correct. How can health-based charities use AI to reach communities who experience health inequalities due to ethnicity, religion, gender, and identity?
For something like this, I would want to have a very specific conversation around this. I work with, for example, a lot of faith-based organizations. We're having conversations around AI in order to engage with, which is for them a subset of the general population. They are, for this one particular organization, it's a specific ethnicity and religion that they want to be having conversations with and grow that audience. So the use cases for AI and how they use that right now are very predictive, but it is, trying to understand the maturity of that audience so they can understand whether the generative pieces are really going to help that experience. So it's kind of a non-answer answer. I'd want to get more into the details. I know it's an anonymous attendee, but I'd really want to understand a little bit more behind that question, because as Andrea was talking about at the very end there, it's starting with what you want to achieve in mind and then working backwards from that to understand how the technology can help you and your team, not the other way around, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think what we really said at the end is take it step by step. Don't do this all at once. So start with the question, how can AI help here? But many people in your organization won't be as natural curious as you are today to attend this webinar. So start with smaller experiments that you can celebrate internally so you get everyone with you. Because we've seen with any transformative change that you need the organization with you. And so one of the polls we removed in the end, but is a very valid question that you should ask in your organization is, who owns AI? Is that just IT? Is that marketing when it concerns journeys? Or is that everyone? And I think both of us would bear towards the last. And so you need to bring your organization with it. It is very much people, process, and technology.
It's a really interesting point. My conversations when I was, years ago were mostly with chief marketing officers and, digital and data teams. And now more and more IT are in those conversations with us. Sometimes just IT, CIOs and the technical teams, because there is this kind of co-ownership that takes place. So I think, having everybody in the room is really important. You said something there, and I'm not going to skip the two anonymous ones there, but I want to, because I think it ties to Ian Murray's question around a small organization, just kind of dipping their toe in the water. So Ian, my take on this. So as a bit of background, the first 4 years of my time in Salesforce, I ran our support practice for Marketing Cloud across EMEA. And what I would tell you is that I had this entire amazing team of technologists underneath me that were answering questions all day, every day. But if something got to my desk, it was because the organization was trying to boil the ocean. They were trying to do too much in the platform right from the beginning. So your question is right after my own heart, because it's exactly how I think you should start. So in my mind, if it's you're new to using Marketing Cloud, let's say, things like send time optimization across a few of your journeys, just to see if it starts to really have an impact on those open rates and click-through rates, is a great way to start. There's other Einstein features, which obviously we didn't show because this wasn't meant to be a full-on product demo, but there's Einstein insights that'll pop up that'll say, hey, here's some segments to potentially target, or here is the portion of your audience that really are just kind of window shopping. They're not really donating or doing anything. Taking those insights and then gauging some of your campaigns around those is a great way to start to understand, what the effectiveness is going to be for you. Because it'll all come down to your data. How engaged is that historical data, so that Einstein can do with it what it can to help drive performance. So I would say those little features, which is why we bake them in, it makes no sense to pay for it if it's not going to be useful. So it's just part of your platform. So starting to use those, I think, is really going to help really build that confidence and also hopefully drive some positive results.
Yeah, and I think this slide that we have up there, obviously it has information on AI, but it has information on anything on Trailhead, not even exclusively our product. And so I see a lot of customers that maybe use us for marketing automation, maybe use another, but they only use about 10 to 20% of the capabilities. So really take that step by step, I would say, because in contrast to previously, so about the time of What's the Internet, when we do direct mail or any kind of campaign, we were really about the tonality, the voice, how we knew our supporters. And then it shifted to the technology. So a lot of the email journeys was also just knowing how to build an email. Now it shifts back to seeing that content and knowing what the best way is to get that emotion to donate, but understanding what's behind it, at least the basics of it, and I hope we help with that today, is still important. And I think scaling up both you yourself and your staff is definitely, we have become a always learning organization, and that's, I think, the future. So I hope those resources help.
Yeah, no, there's two questions there at the top that I want to talk about because they're more around licensing. And so I'll make that, I'll be as straightforward as possible. So Einstein GPT is it's a Salesforce product. Einstein is actually one of, it is the name of our AI solution. So it's not like ChatGPT is a broadly available thing. Bard through Google is broadly available. Einstein GPT is a Salesforce feature. So that is only available, obviously, if you're using one of the Salesforce, technologies. If you already have Marketing Cloud, I cannot answer today whether there's an extra cost to add Einstein GPT, only because I've only just seen the announcement in the last 24 hours. So if you are curious about that, there's an entire team that works under me that I can bring into a discussion, and we can get that question answered for you. Apologies, I just don't have the information today, sadly. I also, for Blaine, I'm not familiar enough with MailChimp's full stack. I know them as a tool. We come across a lot of organizations that start MailChimp and move up into Marketing Cloud, but I don't know if they have that feature in there. I'm very sorry, I can't answer that for you. And I know, Andrea, I'm just like rifling through these, but that next one I want to talk about, which is somebody had mentioned the commerce element of this. So commerce is also a responsibility of my side of the organization. So interestingly, I spend my time thinking about those cross sections between the marketing and the commerce piece. Sometimes because if you're marketing and you're doing, say, digital advertising on Instagram for purchase of the hoodie or merch that you're talking about, you want those systems connected. So there is quite a lot behind where Einstein GPT will be tied into commerce as well. There's also, I would encourage you to take a look at a lot of our literature, and we can share this with you around what's called the data cloud. If anybody remembers that little graph I showed with all the data kind of marrying together, data cloud is the technology behind that. And within data cloud, there is, the roadmap is to have Einstein GPT baked into that. So whether you're doing something in the commerce side of things or the marketing side of things, the CRM or the service side of things, it's all influencing the same record for that one person, that golden record. And Einstein is sitting over the top of that, making those recommendations, helping you make, those suggestions or build those campaigns. So I will, I'll stop for a second there, Andrea. I think I just did 4 questions without giving you a chance to speak.
I know, I think it's very efficient. You almost might think you are generative AI. Is there a chance, Esther Blake, is there a chance in generative AI that content could sound robotic? Warmth and a personal touch are important in generating a rapport with supporters, and how can we manage this? I think I'm just going to give it 2 sentences and then I'll let Patrick talk. But I think one thing I just want to clarify is the difference between using generative AI for content and the difference between using it as an AI CRM. And so if we go into a tool like ChatGPT or any of the others, Jasper AI, we can give it prompts to make it sound in a certain way. If we use it in a CRM kind of context, we can also make it learn the tonality, the tone of voice, how we speak at the nonprofit, and that data won't go out in the public. It's just for you. So I just want to make sure that you understand the difference between those two, and then I'll hand it over to Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that concern about whether it's going to sound like a machine talking to you, we've all seen chatbots that do that. So I think it's a well-founded question. But I've personally been quite impressed with my own, playing around with and experimenting with the different GPT tools out there. I think that it's just constantly getting more and more conversational. And if Andrea made the joke that I may very well be just a deep fake. I may not actually be a real person. You may have just been talking to an AI the whole time. And really, I mean, the only thing I can do is turn off the background and show you my messy office here to really prove that it's really me. But I would say that it's something that is on our minds as well as yours, making sure that from a marketer's perspective, the content doesn't sound stale. So that's kind of one of those things that I think will constantly evolve. It'll constantly get better and better.
And I see that we're almost at the hour. So I'm going to answer the last question, which I just absolutely love. Can AI help to build a CRM? Patrick, do you want to give it a go?
Well, Jake just said what I've said is exactly what a deep fake would say. So I have to be very careful here. Would it help me build a CRM? Yeah, I think Salesforce might want me to say absolutely not, because that's obviously what we have. But I do know that this actually leads me to one really interesting point. If any of you have worked inside a CRM or even in Marketing Cloud and had to do things like write SQL script or AMP script, it does in the roadmap have the potential to write that script for you, to say, I need AMP script that will do this API call or this or this or this. And it goes and builds a script. It's what Andrea showed you in that video. So if I stretch my imagination, yeah, probably, but hopefully not anytime soon, because I like what I do. And if everybody goes off and builds their own CRMs with ChatGPT, I might have to go find something new to do. So that would be my short answer to this one.
I'm not sure that is what a deepfake would have answered. It had a lot more tonality. I think that if you and your organization as a charity would be at the stage that you could have AI build a CRM, I would be extremely happy. Because that means that we as a charity sector have advanced so much that we can also have enough impact to change the things in the world that we're aiming to change. And so I think that's my answer. Please let me know if you have built a CRM with AI. I would be delighted to have you on the next webinar. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chiara.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Patrick. And thank you so much to Salesforce for sponsoring this webinar. And thank you to everyone for being part of today's session. I think it's been really interesting and very engaging in the chat, which we always appreciate. I hope that you've all found it useful and are now feeling more informed on how AI can help improve support experiences and provide insights into donor behaviour. If you could please share your feedback with us, that'd be fantastic. I have posted a link in the chat, and you'll also receive a prompt just after you leave this page. And finally, our next webinar will be about how to maintain fundraising revenue when times are tough on 22nd of June, so in 2 weeks' time at the same time. And we have plenty of other webinars also upcoming on the Charity Digital website. I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.